The UK boss of HSBC Bank has provoked an angry response by suggesting that the closure of bank branches is what customers want. That's what he said, as Britain moves towards a cashless society.
Since 2015, more than 5,000 banks across Britain's high streets have closed. And we wanted to know if you missed your local branch. Let's take a look.
I don't miss going into the branch, to be quite honest. I find that I can do everything I need to do online.
It's just click, click, click on your phone and then it's done. There's always been massive queues in banks, so it just cuts that down.
I do miss not having one to go in and ask questions or to rearrange some things, you know.
There should be at least a financial hub in a village or town. Doesn't matter what bank it is, it could be a joint venture between banks where people can go in and do the kind of transactions they can't do on the internet.
So
interesting, isn't it?
Lots of views there from our interviews. Even more views coming in online. I mean, I've got to say, I can read out the one other person who says we should
We've only had
close.
one, haven't we, on the
Well, this is our second. Nina on Facebook. I can't even remember the last time I actually needed to go to a bank. Technology means we don't need to. That was Nina's view, but we have got absolutely huge numbers of people, just can't read them all out. Andy on Facebook, moved from HSBC as local branches were closing. This isn't what the customers want. It's the greedy fat cat saving money, he says. So it's not your fault, Kate. It's the...
Well, shall we find out? Because I still find I'm at the root cause of most problems, generally. Let's have a look. So, is this right? Was Institute right? Do customers no longer want their branches? We're joined by Dave Fishwick, who set up his own lending company to help his local community following the 2008 financial crash. Dave says banks need to serve the public face-to-face. And we're also joined by businesswoman and commentator Joanna Jarjue, who says a cashless society is the way forward. Well, let's start with you, Joanna, because at the moment, it may well change after you've made your case, but at the moment, the people contacting us say absolutely not. We need a high street bank.
Well, I think that this is definitely a supply and demand issue. And as much as people are, tweeting and making comments that this isn't something that they want, I think that they're showing the banks that this is what they want through their actions. If more of us were actually going out and using the banks, then this wouldn't be an issue. And actually what's happening is that we're using prime real estate in towns and city centres that we can probably be reopening public libraries that the Tories have closed. And we're using that when there's such low footfall in bank branches. And it's really important to note, actually, that, if all bank branches were to close tomorrow, it's not like there's going to be no opportunity whatsoever to do anything physically. There's money hubs that are opening up. So it's just banking, but on a smaller scale, and actually catering to the amount of people that are actually going in and seeing people in person.
I'm sure Dave is foaming at the mouth to get involved. But if I can ask you one more thing, Joanna, from a personal perspective. Look, is that true? Maybe it is that footfall is down, but I wonder if that's not because it's such a difficult task to get into the bank. If you go into most branches, if you can find one open near you, you're often confronted with people walking around with sort of, laptops encouraging you to go online. I tried to open a bank account for my 6-year-old daughter. I wanted to make it a wonderful moment where we sat down and we opened the bank account together. And the woman literally said, we cannot do this. You have to do it online. That was actually Nat West, who advertised a different kind of practice. And I felt for her because she was exasperated about it too. So it isn't really available easily, is it? It's not an easy experience. You have to battle your way through if you do want to go in, and maybe that's what's decreased the footfall.
No, I would disagree. And I also think that, banks aren't there. I understand. I remember the first time I opened my bank and it's all very exciting, but it's also not a theme park. You're there to do something that's very quick, and you're there for a service. And if I was to go into a bank, on my lunch break and somebody came over with an iPad and could half the amount of time that I was in branch so that I could get on with my day, I would appreciate that. So clearly banks are just moving in a much more efficient way.
I appreciate your argument, Joanna, but I'm not sure it is quicker. It's not been my experience. Dave, come on, unleash yourself.
foaming at the mouth. Good morning, everybody. Listen, we need community banks run by the community to benefit the community. They are not theme parks. They are where people go along to do very serious activities. You know, I've got elderly people, young people, middle-aged people, lots who don't have £1,000 for an iPhone or thousands of pounds for a computer or an iPad to be able to do online banking. Lots of people can't afford the monthly fee for the internet. Lots of people up north I've been speaking to just recently don't have the internet. Some people just don't. People like my mum, 74 years old, she has a phone, but it's not a smartphone. And she only just about manages to use that. She's got the early onset of Alzheimer's. What can she do? She needs to go into a bank. People need to be able to speak to people.
Dave, there's also a very...
This is what I'm saying. She can go into a banking hub. Just because the big branches are closing doesn't mean that people don't have the opportunity for alternatives. You can use a money hub. You can go into the post office for simple transactions. And
let me tell you something about post office. I disagree.
Branches are closing, Joanna. I don't think it is just, sorry, Dave, I don't think it is just the big banks, is it? It's in communities, the smaller branches are the ones that have gone, and indeed the post offices.
I agree.
But what I'm saying is that it's the branches.
And I think, Joanna, really importantly, post offices sell stamps and they sell postage things. You know, they sell birthday cards. They take a little bit of money and they do some of the services, but they do not do the big loans. You cannot go and speak to them about a problem. You cannot get financial advice. Lots of people out there are really struggling and they need financial advice. So we do need community banks for the community, not theme parks.
Joanna,
telephone banking still exists, and community bankers are going to be there for the more complex things. I think that we're moving in a way. We're a country that wants to innovate, and the fintech industry is something that's great for us. And I think we need to move in a direction where we embrace these things, and also we take people with us, like the older generation, and give them the digital skills to be able to do that.
I think there is a place for, I do think there's a place for internet banking. I think we all know there's going to be a modern way of doing things, but we still cannot leave people behind. People still need the ability to go and speak to people.
Dave,
that is really important. And my biggest concern in all of this is if we lose the high street lenders, we will then have people taking the place from the payday loan companies. Payday loans prey on the poor and vulnerable. They will be the ones that take over from where the high street is. And my biggest concern is we end up with 5,000% APRs when we have a banking system that works perfectly, but the big banks want to make more money by closing them all down. We need a high street
to Dave, to
you can still
Joanna.
pick up the phone and request a loan. You can still go and use your community banker there. You're just using it at a smaller scale. I don't see the difference between opening.
I feel like being Mrs. Merton here. Mrs. Merton in the middle of a heated debate going on from both sides. I think we should look. You both put the arguments really strongly. I think we now need to get the verdict of the nation. We asked our viewers, is it time to close all high street bank branches? Joanna, I'm afraid it's bad news. 8% of people said yes. Dave, 92% of people agreed with you and said no. Not saying you won the argument, but that's what our viewers said.
We should say that HSBC, that's the boss of which was the one that sort of triggered this debate. They have said that customers are continuing to migrate from physical to digital banking over the past 5 years, and use of the bank's branch network by regular customers has fallen by 65% since the pandemic as well. Some of the branches closing and serving fewer than 250 customers a week. And of course, I suspect that very often those customers that come in do have very big, complicated problems. Maybe a family member's passed away and all those things that are hard, you just can't do so easily online.
I think the one thing which really worries me, Dave made this point, is that if you are older and you are worried that there's fraud or something's gone wrong, your card's not working, there's been fraud or something's happened, and you're worried about trying to sort it out on the phone, because are you phoning the right person? You want to speak to somebody in person to get it sorted out.
You want to be within bricks and mortar, looking to somebody with a badge on and getting the best advice,
Just don't say your name's Kate Garraway, because they'll run a mile.
That's not just banks, it's just generally. Let's have a look at the weather from Laura.